There's one thing that we can all be sure of. We are all experiencing exactly the same pain right now. And that is, how or why do we want to go back into the office?
Okay, so we'll make a start. Thank you for all joining. So just to help put some context to why we're here today, we collectively we're just thinking about the way we're all working at the moment and post-pandemic, and looking at how much change there's been in the market. And we sort of workshopped to a situation where we thought, why don't we just have an open conversation with bringing through industry friends and colleagues together. And for us, it's about the future of work is now, and what does that mean? We sort of tend to get frustrated with words like hybrid that keeps getting thrown around, and for us that's a bit of a naughty word. It can mean lots of different things. Our mantra that we sort of came up with was motivate, not mandate, which we thought was really relevant today, and you'll see that as a theme that we'll touch on. So this sort of session is going to be broken up into really three simplistic sections: the what, why, and how. And again, as I said, we'll try to spend predominant time on the how, because we're all industry professionals here, and I think we all recognise some of the surface problems that are obviously in the media and the like, and we're all experiencing it. But we'll touch on at least the first segment of megatrends, work is evolving, and the occupancy pain. The first one is actually an extract from a recent conference I was in with Project Management Institute, summarising what is the project economy and what's happening. And I'd just like to pose a question to our panellist, Michele first, with an insight to what's been happening more recently in Europe. And if you could sort of, just touch on that would be great.
Yep. Good afternoon. Well, in Europe now we are we can say different trends. Generally speaking, I would say we are still dealing with three main issues. First is, of course, the post-pandemic crisis. Second is inflation. And the third one is, of course, the Ukrainian war. All of these three issues are affecting all the businesses. Then I would add, for sure, the labor market is very dynamic today, so very difficult to find talents. And when you find them, they are very much expensive compared a few years ago. Also because now, I would say the power belongs more to the employees, to people searching for new job experience rather than to the employers. In Europe is very much like that.
I think it's a good segue around how you mentioned that evolution and the change that's occurring. So that those work trends you see, Kristina?
So the problem we're really facing, and this is the thing that I get really passionate about, not necessarily in a good way, and you'll find that out after a few drinks. People are all talking about all the trends that are happening. There are no trends. We don't have enough data to make a decision about what's working and what isn't. So if you want to make a change in your organisation, and we have to, because there are people who have big transactional debt for space that is not being used. And the only way to fix that is to get people back in the office. The only way to get people back in the office is to understand what motivates them. And it's not a cup of coffee and a sandwich anymore. We're way past that point. So if you don't know who your people are, you're not going to get them back into the office. I
think, the data engineering side of it is so critical. Seeing how that translate into the Singapore and Malaysia markets, Leong?
It's more or less the same like in Europe or maybe in Australia. In Malaysia, maybe a bit lower, 25 to 30. But if talking about Singapore, because it's more dynamic and the island is small. But they only can get about 50 to 60% to get back to office. They still need to encourage more and then need to rethink about change in terms of all the facilities to attract all the staff to come back.
Connection, culture, sense of belonging. So I think we'd all be familiar with perhaps the next slide. We thought this was a really potent photo with perhaps that end user thought process of heading to the office. I know it's the colour tone is dark, but it is a bit dark and stormy out there. Let's be real about it. Touching on Michele, and perhaps looking at the philosophy of Korus in Europe.
We defined basically the three categories of values of the company that have at the end human being at the very center. The first one is the engagement, what we call engagement. Engagement is on both sides, so is engagement of the company towards the workforce, the employees, and of course the engagement of each of us towards the company in terms of taking responsibility about what you are doing, regardless if you are doing that 100% at the office or whenever. Second values category is what we call sharing information and collaborative way of working. And personally, I believe that that's the only way we should follow to make sure that the company will continue to grow on a consistent basis. The third one is what we call in French audace, means basically think differently, try to understand what to do to differentiate ourselves from the others. It could be through technology, it could be through some new ideas about how I can be a leader of the market through some innovative ways of working, of providing my services, or it could be through also some new services that I can integrate into my offer. So that's basically what we discuss. And again, we are working for a family-owned company. We pay very much attention to the human being. I'm here to meet with my colleagues outside Europe because when I said human being at the center of the organization, it means also that we have to strengthen our human connections and our international presence and background could be and is actually definitely a key advantage for us towards competitors, trying to reinforce the fact to meet face-to-face on a regular basis and to reinforce our international connections.
That point was raised just earlier in the piece when we were chatting, Christina, around the Zoom subject. But also even Leong and I are exchanging a story about different projects we've been on, and interestingly, a recent project spending up to 25% of their project budget purely on audio-visual. Now that number, I don't know the specific benchmarking against pre-pandemic, but it's certainly a lot higher. And it makes sense.
Yeah, key performance indicators are no longer key performance indicators for leadership. Key performance indicators now need to be keep people interested, keep them innovating. We have to look at, and Michele said it, about the workforce. If you want to do stuff with your workforce, you have to know who they are. And I don't mean, you know them on a first name basis, that's great. There are 4 styles of behaviour ever in the world. You can only be a mix of 2. Figure that out for your office employees, your colleagues, your staff, whatever, and then you can create some stuff that is utterly dynamic. Not everybody wants to come into the office, but you know what? We need to figure out how that looks. And commute is a pain in the backside for everyone. Our employers are now compressing their real estate footprint. They're not paying as much in rent anymore. So now they've got money in their pocket, and it shouldn't go to their bottom line or their own pocket. It should be reinvested in, if I know you and you've just told me that, commute's a pain in the backside, here's $100 a month on an Opal card in Sydney to help that. Or here's an Uber to and from work every fortnight to help you out with that. Would that help you get back into the swing of being in the office for the 2 days? Because it's, $60 either way. What's $240 if I've got you present with your colleagues in the office 2 days a week guaranteed?
Building culture. I think this tagline's very relevant. In order to give them what they wanted or need, you have to know who your people are.
It does start with employment. I mean, I don't know whether any of you have been, but can you imagine being onboarded in a pandemic? Hi, welcome to the company. What company? Here's our culture, here's our values. Really? I don't even know who you are. So then what happens? That whole thing is a disaster.
I think we come up with a collage, effectively, of things that need to be incorporated. Obviously, the centerpiece. Leong's design studio in Kuala Lumpur, with your work with IWG.
Yeah, we've been working with IWG for almost about 10 years, from starting to develop their the whole design, how to change in terms of the whole co-working space from the beginning. Until every 2 years we have to change. We will increase the footprint for the collaboration area. And then when IWG take over spaces, it will completely change the whole thing, and the whole design guideline, it completely it's all talking about collaboration.
And I think that technology has to play a massive role in that, but technology has to be agnostic. You can't dictate who brings the device, what device it is, into your organisation. Wi-Fi is massively important. And you know what? Security, I get security. And I haven't got my phone on me, but I bet you every single one of you does. Right? You've got a phone. I'm telling you now, people, you're being tracked. Guaranteed. Everyone knows where you are and what you're doing. It's just a matter of people looking. So we need to get over this whole, we've got a security issue if we allow Wi-Fi. It's called guest Wi-Fi. Right? Isolate it from your network and let everybody log into it so they can have control over the devices they need to use to be productive. And we're an ageing workforce too. So you need to help us get over that technology gap just in case. When I've got 3 kids, the stuff that they do with technology blows my mind. And I use technology every day.
Yeah, I think we can all agree it's changes on steroids at the moment with that subject. But the key takeaway here is really that people-centred approach, the taking care of me in the centre, which and we can illustrate after this session with some of our past projects, particularly in Europe with the Porsche Customer User Experience Centre, how this is all encompassing in some visuals which help piece it all together. Just wanted to show this imagery in particular. I thought was a fun one in the sense of really simple to suggest how does that change look, and obviously flexible workspace is again a bit of a catchphrase, but what does that truly mean? That might mean demountable partitions, it might mean a whole variety of different furniture options which can be swapped out, because again, we don't know what we don't know. And that could be next year we have a different scenario to deal with. But I love this image where it's effectively exhibition space. And look, maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but it's just, again, another tool in the box to look at and consider. And in that discovery phase of projects, we have options. Particularly a lot of landlords, developers are looking at this to say, what can we do with that building that may have been previously used for something else?
I mean, the thing is, trends change. That's why they're called trends. People's behaviour doesn't. So you will always revert to type when you want to do something. And if it's been successful for you the first and the second time, you'll do it again the third time. So if you can tap into that, the space almost becomes the second place, because you can say, I've got 20% people who really like to collaborate all the time, and that's really important for their role. So that's the space you create. I've got 10% of people who are happy if they never see another human being again and like their dog with them. So you create that space. And you know what? If animals should be allowed to come to work. We've had them for the last 2 years at our feet, literally. Your organisation can turn around and say, you know what, have you got a pet? Yes. Is it a good dog? No. You know what, we'll pay for your dog to be trained, and then once a week you can bring your dog into the office. If you want people to think outside the box, you have to put them outside the box. Otherwise they're just going to keep doing what they've always done, and they actually think that that works. Well, the whole world's suddenly gone, you know what? No, it doesn't. What are you going to do differently?
Yeah, I think when we were putting this all together, and we chat between the different markets, the consensus was it is very similar. We're all trying to come up with similar solutions to similar problems. But if we spend just a minute, and I'll pose Michele a question on one of the tools that Korus Group has developed over a number of years. The K-Scan tool, do you want to just touch on that at a high level, Michele?
We've tried to differentiate our business during the past several years by also trying to add into our offer towards clients more services, and particularly after having integrated the design into the general contracting services. More recently, we decided to integrate what we call strategic consultancy. For us, means particularly change management and workplace strategy. So topics that are at the very beginning of the processes, of all processes about renovating space, about even thinking about the need of carry out whatever kind of real estate operation for our clients. So we integrated some specific competencies to sell this kind of service, and we've created, particularly in our headquarters in France, a dedicated team made by not construction expert, but expert about strategic consultancy and change management, psychologists. And basically, K-Scan is the first tool we have created after, it's a result of 2 years' time research. It's a survey, basically, of nearly 60 questions that must be addressed to all of the employees of whatever organization, with the purpose basically to collect data. Because if you want to address some company to make a change or to move from one side to another one, you need to understand who they are, why they are in a place, which kind of new needs they have because of new trends and because of the need of changing and something new about inside the organizations. So the purpose of this tool is basically to collect data in a certain way through this survey addressed to all of the employees. Automatically, the platform generates with this data some dashboards to explain to key people of the company the result of the survey and where they are at the moment of the survey. And after a 6 months period, you make another survey, another evaluation of the data, and then you can see, in this way you can see if actually the tool works. And that's more or less how it works.
One of the things that you just said, information, data is just data. So you can gather as much data as you like, but if you don't translate data into information and then information into knowledge, there's no point in having the data.
So I guess to try to synthesize this, Kristina, we came up with a phrase.
Is that command and control?
Command and control. Yeah. Collaboration and trust.
It's important. Not that all organisations say they do it. Part of what I've done for a very long time is mentor CEOs and CEOs of the top 500 ASX listed companies. And CEOs think they're really, really good at communicating to their people. Nothing could be further from the truth. So what's really interesting is they look at an organisation and that same bank. Right? So we created, I don't know, I was going to say pits, but that's not quite the right word. It's an amphitheatre. And we threw beanbags in there because it seemed like a good idea 5 years ago. People were so scared to sit in them in case he walked past and went, what are you doing drinking coffee in a beanbag with your laptop with 3 other people? That's not work. So command and control is very much about, if I can't see you, then how do I know you're doing the right thing? We have to move away from that to collaboration and trust, which means right at the very beginning, we have to go, do you know what? This is your role. You agree with that. Your key performance indicators still are important, but so are your key behavioural attributes. We need to start factoring in behaviours. So if you've got an organisation that says, if I can't see you, I don't think you're working, it's bollocks. And we all know, Kristina has joined the conference. Oh, sorry, I've got really bad internet issues. Kristina has left the conference. And Kristina doesn't have internet issues. Mind you, Australia does, but you know what I mean. You'll get in and out of it because you want to and because you can. So trust and collaboration are critically important, where you say, you know what, I need you to do this task and I need it done by whatever. It could be a project, 6 months. Keep me updated. Don't care where you work from. Don't care how you work or who you're working with, as long as the project gets done on time, on budget, and it's a great outcome for the client.
So I think to wrap up the conversation, you know, our takeaways here is work-life balance, separate it. Culture can never be underestimated. Flexible workspace, there's a whole series of tools that we can introduce on that front. But most importantly, it's just connecting with the organisation, culture and people that it is. So there's a lot there. We are happy to help unpack all that, and more importantly, we can have some drinks and have more open conversations around some of these complexities and where we can help.
How we fix it.